Hello, 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 my friends. Welcome back to another episode of the Mental Corner podcast, the show where I bring on guests from all different backgrounds to talk all the things mental health. I'm your host, Harry Potvin, and today is just another solo episode with yours truly. I didn't do an episode on Thursday. I took another break, spent some well needed time with friends and family, so this is the only one this week. And you're going to see a lot more of just solo me for the next couple weeks only because I love taking guests on, obviously. But I'm going to be going out west for Canada. I'm going to be spending time with my grandparents. So it's just going to be some well needed me time with some friends and family again, getting back to the core root of the values that I have and what matters most to me. So there's going to be a lot of solo episodes. So you better stay tuned. So the topics that I'm talking about today are actually, this is an idea that I've been wanting to do for a while. Just because you read up about mental health in the news, and what I've found is a reoccurring theme when you go into a news outlet and you type in mental health. I find that there's a lot of negativity. And of course, it's super important to keep updated with, all the negative sides of mental health, like the suicides that are going on, the rises of depression. I feel like it's very important to stay in tune with what's going on because that way we can have the conversation, we can figure out what we need to do to move forward. But I don't ever really see any positive media. I actually did it just this morning. I looked at mental health on one of these news sites, and it took me 2 pages to find anything even remotely positive. And it wasn't even positive. It was like hey, we're in the shitter right now. We could get here if we try, but also it looks kind of tough. So there isn't that much positivity. So that's one aspect of this episode I wanted to get at. I want to start highlighting super positive messages that are found in the mental health space because it's hard to find them. And honestly, that just causes a lot of doom and gloom for myself personally, and I'm sure for a lot of you, because you're reading this and you're like, is there any positivity going on out there? The second part of this episode, I want to do some book recommendations. I read a lot, and this is just going to keep me motivated to keep reading, keep expanding my reading horizons, and hopefully introduce you guys to some books that I've personally loved and have really given me some knowledge to move forward with. And the third piece of this episode is a music recommendation, whether it's a song, an album, whatever it is. Again, just like books, I love listening to music, and hopefully I can introduce stuff to you guys that you will find valuable or entertaining. So let's get right into it. So the first news article that I read up about is about this new digital therapeutic for adolescents. It's actually the first one. It's called Spark RX, and the way they designed it was with the help of this teen advisory council, just so that they could ensure that the target audience was reached. It's mostly geared towards ages 13 to 22 from what I've read, and it's just to address like this increase in doom and gloom, depression, anxiety levels in our youth and our young adults, because it's something that it keeps rising. And so basically it's this multi-week smartphone app that's based on cognitive behavioral therapy, and they've actually brought in mental health professionals to come in, give advice, give their tips and tricks, their knowledge, share it with this app. So it is very knowledgeable. It is very professionally made. It's all of that. And it teaches teens skills such as behavioral activation, mood tracking, mindfulness, all of this stuff that, like for me, when I was a young teen, I was like even a young adult at that point, I did not have these skills. So it is super beneficial to start implementing these skills for these young adults, these young teens, because then they're just going to be one step ahead in the game. And I think the approach is great because not only did they have, teens help develop the app and help make it so that it's approachable for young teens, but they also have it in app form. Now, I know being on your phone isn't great, screen time isn't great, social media isn't great, but I mean, what better way to attract the young audiences who are already on your phones than by giving them something that is super beneficial and right there with the press of a button? So I'm really excited to see where SparkRx goes, and I really love the initiative that they're taking. The second article that I read is another amazing one because I am a big fan of this topic, and I'm sure some of you are as well. Psilocybin microdosing. So this article is talking about how this study that they did, it found that there was improved mental health and there was improved psychomotor dexterity in those that are 55 years old or older. It's a growing movement, this microdosing, this mushroom use, this MDMA therapy. I love every second of it. So basically what this study was is, they had this finger tap task. It's this kind of study that they use where a patient is recorded tapping their index finger to their thumb as many times as possible in 15 seconds. And so basically, it was conducted on adults over 55 years of age who were also microdosing. And what they found was when the microdosing was combined in the patients with lion's mane, which is another mushroom, and niacin, there was a 40% increase in the number of taps after 1 month of microdosing. So it means that, their motor skills are way improved, their mental sharpness is way improved. And basically, it's just it's a great sign in terms of what we're looking for with MDMA therapy, with microdosing therapy, with all of these things that are going to become the future of therapeutics. And Paul Stamets, who is a mushroom expert, he said that these results stand out as a strong signal of significance for psychomotor performance. So this is just a great, promising article. It's a promising study, promising results, and I can't wait to see what this does for the near future when it comes to microdosing. Okay, time for some recommended books. So I put two here. I've read a lot. I try to make it a goal of mine to read as much as possible. My goal is to read two books a month at least, just to keep my brain going. So the two that I want to recommend for this week, the first one is called Atlas of the Heart. It's by Brene Brown. Most of you know who Brene Brown is. She's an incredible person, and I love reading Brene Brown. I love listening to her talks. She's just so easy to listen to and just articulates herself in such a great way. And this book is so fantastic because it looks to map the meaningful connection and the language of the human experience. It was not only super informative, but it was very well written. It was easy to understand, even for people who may not be so indulged in this space or knowledgeable in this space. And as a guy who grew up, and I've talked about this on the podcast so much, as a man, you're kind of taught to be happy, sad, and angry. Those are the three. So when you experience a different kind of emotion, let's say shame, guilt, hopelessness, whatever it is, you have a hard time putting that into the category of the three that you know. And so that leaves you with this weird feeling of like, I don't even know what I'm feeling right now. I don't know how to put it into words. I don't know how to articulate it. And that just leaves you feeling like a loser, angry, hopeless again. It just leaves you with all these emotions and it makes you feel tense. So this book, I loved it so much because it described everything in such a great way. It mapped it out in such a great way. And this is a very useful book for anyone who may be wanting to explore this space. And the second book that I recommend, I just finished reading it. It's called Stolen Focus. It's by Johann Hari, who is a journalist. And this is it's such an eye-opening book. It talks about how our society has been led to an inability to focus for long periods of time. Basically, how we got there from our society to our phone addiction to our nutrition, our lack of sleep, the way our society is speeding up and speeding up. It recounts everything that's led us to this point, and it kind of tells us ways that we can, prevent this short attention span, or ways that we can fix it, and ways that the governments can come into play, and how we have to take control back. It's such an amazing book. It was so eye-opening, and honestly, to be completely honest with you, I got super emotional reading this book. There was one point in particular that talked about how much mindless scrolling we do on social media, just without even thought, because they've eliminated that thing at the end of the page that says, "Oh, you're all up to date." You can keep scrolling now forever. And they did a study, and I'm sorry, I'm taking this directly from the book. This is not my knowledge at all, but they found that if you take all of the mindless scrolling that you do, if you take let me rephrase that. If you take all the mindless scrolling that everyone does and you combine it, it's equivalent to 200,000 human lifetimes. 200,000 from birth to death lifetimes. Obviously, an average lifetime, but that is unbelievably grotesque. It is so much time wasted. And I read that and I just got so emotional because I'm like, man, I'm a part of that. And you don't even know. It's just something that's become a habit. So this book, so eye-opening, makes you want to throw your phone into the water and hide in the woods forever. It's beautifully written, and this is another book that you guys definitely have to read. And last but not least, my music recommendation. So for this week, my music recommendation is an album, and most of you, if you're kind of like me and you're into hip-hop, you've definitely heard this album already, but I'm going to recommend it anyway. It's called Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers. It's by Mr. Kendrick Lamar himself, one of the greatest of our generation, if not the greatest of our generation. And this album, I was listening. When I was coming back from my family vacation, we were in the airport, and my friend Tay, who's been on the show, he texted me and he's like, "Dude, you have to listen to this album." And I was nervous because Kendrick Lamar, obviously one of the greatest, like I said. So the expectation was very high. And I put this album in right before the plane took off. And the plane ride was about 5.5 hours. I listened to it the whole plane ride. I couldn't stop listening. It's just an unbelievable album. And basically, what makes it so unbelievable, what makes me such a big fan of this album, is that it highlights stuff like mental health, depression, generational trauma, sexual abuse, all of this stuff that never really gets talked about, not only in hip hop, but in music in general, kind of because it's people just consider it not really a big selling topic. They're not really big selling topics. People don't think that other people want to listen to that, and so they kind of drive away from that conversation. Kendrick Lamar does not do that. He dives right into it. This whole album is incredible. It talks about all these really uncomfortable topics that need to be discussed about. And as a kid who grew up on hip hop, who grew up on listening to the messages that these rappers, let out and tell, I really appreciate this side of hip hop. I really appreciate this vulnerability that Kendrick Lamar is showing. It really just it makes it feel like music is going in the right direction because these messages are being spread more. It's beautifully done. And not only that, not only does he cover these topics, but he does it in a way where you want to listen to the album again, which I think is so incredible. He takes these super heavy topics, he puts them in these super heavy songs, and you're like, that was super heavy. I want to listen to it again. So he did a great job with this album. If you're into hip hop, if you're into that messaging, you have to check this album out if you haven't already. Personally, my favorite song is Father Time. I think mostly because he talks about his personal daddy issues that he's been stuck with. Basically, because his father before him never really addressed it, and then his father before him, it's a product of generational trauma and just not addressing the problems that you have internally. And it's such an amazing track about a topic that never gets talked about. Like, how many rappers have you heard talk about them having daddy issues? Like, come on. It's an amazing album. Kendrick, you killed it. You kill it always, but this, you've outdone yourself. Beautiful album. Definitely check it out. So that's all I got for you this week. I think I'm going to keep doing these. I really like it because it gives me also the opportunity to look at the positive side of news. It gives me some, motivation to keep reading, gives me some motivation to keep checking out music, and hopefully just spread a good message to you guys. I know that a lot of you are like me. You sit down, you read the news, you read the headlines. I think recently monkeypox just got declared a big, big global issue or something. So you read articles like that, and if it just feels like we're never going to get out of this spiral of craziness, and you just feel so hopeless sometimes. So hopefully, spreading some of these super important messages, some super positive messages, some very important books and music that can get your mind away from that a little bit. And I hope I helped you in a little way. And if you guys have any book recommendations, music recommendations, news articles that you read that you loved, send them over my way. You've got my info, you got my Instagram, my email. I'd love to hear them. I'd love to have a discussion. And let's keep this positive vibe going, man. So that's all I got for you this week. I hope you have a great rest of your day. I hope you have a great start to your week, and I will talk to you all very soon. Peace.